Welcome to episode 18 of Nudges and Bridges, the music of movement. I think that I mentioned when I first started these that I got the idea of these stages, these 6 or 7 stages, from work from moral psychologists such as Lawrence Kohlberg, Carol Gilligan, Jean Piaget, folks like that. And I think that that research is very rich and very illuminating. There are differences among them of exactly what the stages look like. But I think that they have a point to them, but there has also been a point where I have made sure that I differentiated myself from them. And that is that it has always struck me that those stages were meant as a kind of a have a developmental component to them, so that you ended up with an end preferable stage. For instance, with Kohlberg, you had why be ethical while you stay out of trouble? Why be ethical while you sustain relationships? Why be ethical because you end up it's because it's a good noble thing to do, and there are differentiations with each one of those 3 categories that make it 6 rather than just 3. And I think that that's fine, but I don't think that human beings end up in any one state. I don't think that even if we have reached the state where we're doing something because it's purely noble, doesn't mean that we also don't pay attention to what's going to get us in and out of trouble. It doesn't also pay attention to what is going to sustain relationships. And so I think that we're in all 6 of the stages that I have talked about, maybe within the same hour of a given day. So we may be in a competitive us and them mode. We may be in an appreciation of rules more, recognizing the importance of rules. We may be wanting to sustain a friendship. We may be celebrating a sense of joy or a moment. We may be able to think back in terms of perspective, and we maybe even have a transcendent moment. And those all could occur. An hour would be pretty busy, but maybe within the day or maybe within a week. And so I added this last step because I think it's important for us to keep in mind that this is all a moving target. We all move around within these. And in fact, what is appropriate at one point given during the day may not necessarily be appropriate at another part of during the day. And so we need to have different pieces of music, different examples of sports or meals or pets or whatever, in order to help us get into those stages. That's part of the point, that we may be in a state of mind in stage 2 and we need to be in stage 5, or we may be feeling stage 5, but at that particular moment we need to be in stage 2. And so the notion of using a cultural artifacts to help us get there is recognizing a way in which we are always in the midst of moving around. So rather than simply being at one level, we move among all of these levels all the time. And what's important is to be mindful of the fact that there is movement, and we may need help in making that movement. That's why the assignments have been to queue up your songs that help you get from one stage to the other stage when you're recognizing that you may not be in the cognitive frame of mind that you need to be for the moment that you are in. So that these are examples, again, from my 18 to 20-year-old students of things that help them move around. And by this, I mean that they recognize that there was a song that did more than one thing. It wasn't just an us-them competitive thing. It wasn't just a transcendent thing. There was movement among them to remind themselves that they need to be thinking of movement as well. So you see examples of here, The Walker with Fits and the Tantrums, Dear Today by Luke Combs, Waka Waka by Shakira. And I just give you as those that have been mentioned by my students recently, and to kick off your examination and imagination of what might put you in various kinds of categories and moving around within one song. My own 2 cents, my favorite song in this is the Byrds from the 60s, Turn, 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 which is a variation of King Solomon from the Torah or Old Testament, to everything there is a season and a time and a purpose for everything under the sun. And so I think as we conclude this musical sequence of these 7 stages, it's worth keeping in mind that there is a time and a place for each one of these stages, and being mindful of where you are and being mindful of where you need to go makes identifying the pieces of music in each one of these stages a helpful tool to be able to know how to get to the next stage. And with that, we're done with episode 17.